Oh, it does start playing.
So that's the microphone?
Yeah, it's...
Really? The puffy thing?
Uh-huh. But yeah, so... Um... Obviously our mouths aren't matching the sounds coming out. Because someone, Ryan, may or may not have messed up the sound of the previous recording for Shuggie Bain. Oh, I guess I could have waited because we can hold that up at some point. Oh, there's Shuggie Bain.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I laughed at the same time. And so we're just gonna kind of do it like a
Voiceover?
like a commentary voiceover.
Okay.
Maybe I should only speak when you're speaking on screen, so it looks like, and I try to guess what you're saying, like a bad lip reading.
Oh God.
It's almost just like a podcast, just without the
Yeah.
without the podcasting. It's
Okay.
It's almost more awkward than just filming it.
Yes, I agree. Well, things are getting serious now because you're looking through the book.
Oh yeah, I was looking for that word.
Which word?
That Scottish word. Donate.
Oh,
DONNAE.
Yeah, how they end their words with NAE or something like that.
Yeah,
Or,
how he wrote it phonetically. Okay, well, okay. All right, so we read Shuggie Bain, and we talked a lot about how sad the book was. How it was one of the most probably depressing books that
not to mention dark.
very dark and depressing that I've at least read in recent history. How do people on the radio do this? Like, they never stop talking.
I just don't know what to do. Okay.
I guess so. It dealt with a lot with alcoholism.
Yes. Well, and then family dynamics and relationships. And I think that was what was very disturbing.
Talked about how probably couldn't recommend the book. I mean, it's well written. The metaphors are really, really outstanding. I thought because it's still the one that it's been a while now since we've read it, but the one where he's so hungry, but he's with his brother and he eats the noodles and he's talking about how they're like warm worms in his stomach, and something about that metaphor just kind of has stuck with me since.
Oh, you still remember it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember discussing that I enjoyed the book not so much for its plot or its characters, but just how well it was written.
See, I thought the characters were really
Well developed?
Yeah. I mean.
No. I mean, I agree with you.
I mean, there's almost like no one that you could root for, but as soon as something good started to happen, you knew that something bad, even worse, was about to take place. So for every good thing, there was an even worse thing, it felt like. So she finally starts sobering up, and then she meets Eugene, and you're like, oh, this is, for like a good chunk of the book, you're like, okay, this is on the up and up, and we're going to see more about Shuggie, and then all of a sudden it just got worse than before.
Well, we also discussed, maybe at this point, how he was her best hope, but yet he was the one who was responsible for Agnes's relapse into alcoholism.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very surprising.
Oh, you were surprised by that?
Yeah.
See, I knew something even worse was going to happen.
Really?
Yeah, it just... I almost like slowed down reading it just because I didn't want it to get sadder. But
yes, it was definitely one of the most difficult books I've read in a while, and none of this is matching.
It's not supposed to match. It's just us.
Okay. Right. We enjoyed the writing more than the plot. Is that fair to say or not?
Um, I don't know. It's a difficult book because it's such a downer, but it's not for everybody. Like, we talked about how we couldn't necessarily recommend it to people,
Right.
but people willing to take it on should definitely read it. But it's such a heavy book.
It really is.
And House, because of his orientation, he was just so alone. But it's for everything that's happened and having no real like model except for his brother. He, by the end, you get the feeling he is going to turn out okay. I mean, he's out there doing his Shuggie dance again. And
Yeah.
I like how he kept. It was real subtle throughout the book, but how they used his dancing as a way for like. But even the first time he started dancing, he was finally like feeling good about himself and feeling like who he is, and then that's when the neighbors see him, and like every good thing, there's an even worse thing. It never.
It really broke my heart how he always thought that a new beginning would change the way he and his mom were, I guess.
Right. I mean, he never.
But you are who you are.
And he never lost that hope.
No.
I mean, at times he never even had it, though. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's heavy. It's a heavy book.
I was really saddened by Shuggie's relationship with his mother. He just absolutely adored her. But he sensed and he knew that he just wasn't enough for her. She just always needed either the drink or just some other man in her life to feel complete.
Right.
And that was very heartbreaking.
I will say though, because of the book, now that every time I get thirsty, I'm like, oh, time for a wee drink.
Did you really enjoy the book?
I did, but not in a feel-good way. I mean, you're not gonna walk away from this book feeling good, but I think it's a story that still needs to be told in the sense that there are people that have dealt with someone in their life like that and need to see they're not alone, or at the same time, people that don't understand someone they'll say they're an alcoholic and you're like, oh, just stop drinking. Like, people can read this book and see it's not just a flip of the switch. Like, everything about Agnes, she knew that she needed to stop, and something about but she couldn't.
I thought that the book was about Shuggie, the child, but it's mostly about his mother.
Right.
And that really surprised me, but then I also remember that I made the point that I can also see why it's named for him, because it's almost like a coming of age story.
Yeah.
And I just love the fact that there are so many different names for coming of age. Right? I mean, well, I only know two, so I guess this is not two.
I'm with you though. It starts off and he's older, and then it goes back into the past, but it so heavily relies on the family and not just him. So at the end of the day, he does bookend the story, and he is a character that's prevalent through most of it, but at times it goes into like the scene where his brother and sister are on the rooftop. Like, there's no way he would have known that ever happened. But that scene, it shows how they got close, so later on when they broke apart, how painful it was. It's very much the family story and not just Shuggie, so I was surprised that it was called Shuggie Bain, for sure. I don't know if I would call it something else, but I mean, I guess if it's autobiographical and it's his story, he's gonna call it after the character.
Well, Agnes doesn't quite have the same ring as Shuggie.
But it's almost.
Shuggie Bain, but
I it's the mom story.
You really think so?
As much as it is Shuggie's. Mm-hmm.
She definitely shapes, who he is and how he turns out, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it's gonna shape him, and I don't know. You feel so bad for him the whole time. Poor little kid. I mean, you don't dislike him. I mean,
Right.
even when he does things he shouldn't, like steal My Little Pony dolls.
Yeah.
You still don't dislike Shuggie.
Yeah. The other thing that I was going to mention is I can't say that I necessarily like the book just because it really isn't my type of book to just, or the book that I would pick up and think that I would really enjoy. It's just I appreciate it more for the writing. But I really didn't like the book itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think you're...
I mean, it's really hard to explain.
Yeah, I don't know if I could go back and like reread it, but I'm glad I read it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yes, it's not the type of book that most people would like to reread unless
Yeah, it's not the one you want to curl up with before bedtime. That's happy little dreams. It's heavy. It's a very dark, heavy book.
Are you surprised that it won the Man Booker Prize?
Well, based on what you've told me about all the books that win, no. It's apparently, but the more depressing the book, the more accolades it gets with the...
You can guarantee that it will win the Man Booker.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, had that joke about this being season 2 since there's been such a gap in between, and I did something. I took every time one of us took a sip, and I just had a wee drink.
I mean, I think that... No, I like that, actually. That's...
Okay, you're not as thirsty as I am. I am constantly...
I find that you are taking more of your drinks than I am.
Yes.
Which is quite unusual, but yeah.
But I don't think you can discuss this book without the drinks.
No, it really made up. I mean, it's what really drove the plot of the